Back in 2016, I was working full-time, running two seven-figure businesses, a podcast, a conference, and raising two young kids at the same time. So I was often asked why I even bothered working when my businesses generated so much money. Now the truth is that I really loved my job. Now as a former director of engineering, I had the opportunity to work in a field that I loved with people who were way smarter than me. All my coworkers had PhDs from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, MIT, and Princeton, and it was literally a dream job for any engineer. But after working at the same company for 17 years, I finally decided to quit in 2016, and here's why and some of the lessons that I learned in the process. Now the funny thing is that most people don't like their jobs, but I can honestly say that I loved mine. All of my colleagues and peers were smarter than me, and I was consistently challenged every single day. And in fact, I've written at length in the past on why I never considered quitting, but a couple of epiphanies finally pushed me over the edge. Now for one thing, I've come to realize that my kids are getting older at an insanely fast pace, and I don't want to miss any of it. Right now, they're at a golden age where they actually want to hang out with me, and who knows how long that will last. In addition, as they've gotten older, their activities have grown exponentially, and I wanted to be more involved. I even considered coaching some of their sports teams, and bottom line, I started all my businesses to spend more time with my family, and I don't want to lose track of that vision, but it's been tough. Now, even though my businesses don't require more than 20 hours per week to maintain, I am constantly bombarded with new opportunities that are difficult to turn down. So for example, I started my conference, the Seller Summit, the same year that I quit with my friend Tony on a whim because it was something that I've always wanted to do. Anyway, I wanted to take a quick moment to reflect on some of the major lessons that I've learned leading up to my quitting. And so here are just some words of wisdom from some random Chinese guy on the internet. All right, advice number one, always have a backup plan. Now, even if you're happy with your job and the current status quo, you should always have a backup plan because you never know when your priorities will change. Now, for the past 17 years, I was very happy with my day job and could have realistically worked there for another 17 years. But my kids completely changed the picture. Now, if you want to be in control of your own destiny and if you want flexibility in your life, then you need to have an alternative income source on the side. No excuses. There are 168 hours in a week, and you spend roughly 56 hours sleeping, 40 hours working, 36 hours eating, showering, taking care of yourself, which still leaves 36 hours to do whatever you want. So take advantage of this time to plant your seeds of wealth before you need the money. Now, I started mywifequitherjob.com 6 years before I needed the income, and my wife and I started bumblebeelinens.com a full year before my wife knew that she was going to quit. Advice number two, anything that is easy will not lead to long-term success. Now, after running my blog for the past 12 years, I've encountered so many people who want to get rich quick. And their first question to me is always, what is the fastest way to make money? What's the easiest way to start? Now, unfortunately, this is the absolute wrong way to approach a business. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the easier your path, the less sustainable your business model. So let's just take blogging as an example. There are hundreds of thousands of people who have started blogs in search of great riches because it's so easy to do. All you need is $2.95 a month and you can launch your own WordPress site. But because the barriers to entry are so low, there is a ridiculous amount of competition and you have to do something extraordinary to stand out in the crowd. Now, the people who succeed at blogging today are those who either started when it was much less saturated or those who are doing something incredible that makes them stand out. The world of e-commerce is no different. Now, right now, Amazon is still hot, but I give it a couple more years until the platform becomes completely saturated with random sellers. You can either hop on right now, or you can wait until it gets much more difficult. When my wife and I started Bumblebee Linens, we made a commitment to sell products that were a pain in the butt to fulfill. Now, doing custom embroidery sucks. Not only are the machines expensive, but it also requires some expertise to stitch out embroidery designs in volume. But custom embroidery on demand is a value add that allows our little shop to stand out. The next lesson that I learned is that design matters. Now, the design of your website matters, and I was just reminded of this important lesson when my mastermind colleagues ripped up my site to shreds. Now, if you have your own brand and web property, you cannot neglect the aesthetics and the usability of your website. Customers who shop in your store evaluate whether they're going to buy from you within the first 5 seconds. So you really need to have those seconds count. By having an attractive and usable design, you can drastically increase the likelihood of a purchase. Now, if you haven't read my post I wrote an article about my last site redesign, which resulted in a 42% increase in conversions, and you can just check the show notes and read that article. The other piece of advice that I have for you is never call yourself an expert. Now, when I first launched my e-commerce course back in 2011, everyone started calling me an e-commerce guru, and I fell into the trap of playing that role. But here's the thing. As soon as you start believing that you're an expert in your field, your mind instantly shuts off. All of a sudden, you find yourself less willing to learn new things because you feel like you know everything already. And what's worse, being an expert makes it difficult to openly admit that you don't know something because everybody expects you to be a master in your field. So here's my advice, even if you are awesome at what you do. Tell yourself that you don't know everything that there is to know about a subject. You can learn from everyone, regardless of skill level. You are a student just like everyone else, and you must keep up with the latest trends in order to stay relevant. Now, if you tell yourself these things every day, you will keep an open mind and constantly learn. Next piece of advice is to do something different and better. Do not follow anyone else. Now, while I love the opportunities that Amazon has presented to us in the e-commerce space, I found that there are just too many people out there just throwing up Me Too products online. Go on Alibaba, find a product that has decent profit margin, import said product as is with no changes, list the product on Amazon, and make short-term money. Now, while this formula does in fact work, it's definitely not a good long-term strategy. If you sell stuff and don't make it your own, it's just a matter of time until someone will find the exact same vendor and copy you. So instead of throwing up just a bunch of easy-to-source products, take some time to design a better mousetrap. Take some time to create your own design or to provide a value add that no one else is providing. Do something different and don't follow everyone else. Now, the same principle holds true with all the how-to advice on selling online that is circulating around the web. Now, if you follow the same rules for niche research and sourcing as everyone else, you'll end up selling the exact same products as everyone else. So take all the guidelines and strategies that you learn online with a grain of salt and find your own path. Now, the best way to succeed is to care about others. Now, first off, I want to emphasize that it's impossible to run a successful business in a vacuum. Your ability to achieve your goals will largely be dependent on your network and your ability to work with others. And that is why I'm such a huge believer in attending conferences. Even though I have 2 kids and run 4 businesses, I still find the time to travel to 4 to 6 conferences every year. In fact, none of my businesses would have taken off had I not put myself out there to meet other like-minded entrepreneurs. But establishing new contacts at networking events is only half the battle. If you truly want to foster lifelong relationships with your peers, you have to care. Now, what does it mean to care? Well, it means being willing to help without expecting anything in return. It means trying to get to know someone personally instead of treating them like a resource. It means delving deeply beneath the surface of small talk. Now, if you want to grow your business, start by helping others first and let reciprocity take its course. Another piece of advice is to be bold and amazing, and people will seek you out. Now, I spent the first half of my blogging career as a complete unknown, and no one gave me the time of day. And why is that? It's because my content was pretty bad, and I focused on quantity over quality. I wrote these middle-of-the-road pieces that regurgitated what other entrepreneurship blogs were already talking about. And in fact, it wasn't until I started writing more personal posts did people start taking notice. I started expressing my opinions more, incorporating my personality into my writing. And in short, I stopped caring about pleasing everybody and just let the words flow. So today, I try to be different and write down whatever comes to my mind instead of the watered down fluff that a lot of other entrepreneurial blogs put out. And whenever I reach out to influencers with larger audiences than my own, I usually go all out and take a couple of risks. So here's an example of an email that I wrote to Tony Horton of P90X to make myself more memorable. Now, by the way, if you're not familiar with Tony Horton, he created P90X, which is one of the best-selling workout videos of all time. All right, so here's the letter that I wrote. Hey Tony, awesome interview today. Unfortunately, as a podcaster, I'm forced to perform extensive due diligence on all my guests, and here's what I uncovered after just a tiny bit of Googling. Shauna, you were incredible in helping arrange the interview, but I'm not sure that I can air the episode in light of the following scandal. So what I did at this point is I wrote a fake PR press release. And I'm just going to read the press release to you. Tony Horton caught in junk food scandal, fitness career over. Tony Horton, the award-winning creator of the home exercise hit P90X, was spotted today on the epic junk food binge. Now Tony, pictured here, was photographed chomping down on McDonald's French fries in a room littered with dirty junk food wrappers, and judging by the amount of trash in the room, experts estimated that he'd been consuming filth for approximately 4 weeks. "First I gave up carbs, then I stopped eating sugar, and enough was enough," Tony was quoted as saying as he shoved a handful of fries into his mouth. His fitness career over, Tony was last spotted trying out for the Chippendales Senior Citizen Tour. Now, maintaining an impeccable body and being a role model for men's health was too much for Tony, which just goes to show that even well-known fitness stars don't always have their act together. Now, my thank you letter to Tony might have sounded random, but it was actually a big hit. And the moral of the story is to be bold, stand out, and don't fear the consequences. Let your personality shine and stop playing it safe. Now, the difference between success and failure is just a decision to keep trying. Now, this last lesson is definitely a cliche, but it's actually the most important lesson of them all. When I first started my blog, I had 0 readers for over a year. And in fact, it took me well over 3 years to generate any sort of meaningful income. If I had given up early, I would have missed out on making $1 million every single year. Now, when I first launched my online store, I had very little sales for the first month, and my wife and I wanted to give up and call it a day. But we kept with it and managed to replace my wife's salary in a single year. Now, the key to succeeding in business is not to give up at the first roadblock, or the second, or the third. Give yourself a 3 to 5 year time horizon and understand that it's a marathon and not a sprint. Hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you like what you saw, there's actually a lot more where that came from if you subscribe to my channel below. And if you are interested in learning how to sell physical products online, then click over here and take my free 6-day mini course where I'll walk you through everything that you need to know to get started in e-commerce. Thanks for watching.